Hey there, everybody. It's Sunday night, as you all might know. Or you don't. I don't care. But yeah, it's a bit late, and I decided, what better time than to record probably an overly long bonus video for Koudelka, showcasing possibly the easiest way to take care of the very, very optional, pretty difficult side boss. Yeah, you might recall earlier on, when we were separated from Edward and James, that we ran into a fearsome gargoyle that we could not defeat at the time. It's just completely invulnerable, and, well, once you rejoin your party, you can come back into the church and have your own little boss fight with that menacing entity. Now, the thing to keep in mind is that the gargoyle itself is probably about a level 60 enemy, and so far we've been facing maybe level 20, 25. It has, I think, probably about 33 to 34,000 health, which you might think we could just easily tear through, since Koudelka can usually, score 4 to 6,000 damage. The Gargoyle has very high physical defense. He has very high magic defense. He is completely invulnerable, I think, to wind-based attacks. And he doesn't really have any weaknesses. I think he might take half damage from, all other spells. He is a tough customer. He hits hard, he moves fast, and I think for the most part they assume that you might go after him at level 45 to 50 and still have a tough time. But yeah, we are not going to wait that long, because that would put us all the way to the end of the game, and the reward we get from it we do want to try to partake in before we get to that point. So a couple things you might notice right off the bat here. You will see that James has a whopping 9,999 health. If you can believe it, he actually has more health than that. It's just that the health meter maxes out at 9,999. And the reason that he has that much health right now is, if we look at his equipment, we will see that very magical sword right there, known as the Gargoyle Killer. The Gargoyle Killer is the secret item you get, I think, from 11 hours, 11 minutes, and 11 seconds. And as you can probably guess from the name, it is meant to be the weapon that you wield to take out the gargoyle with the... Well, you can obviously tell it gives a shit ton of stats, while also, it gives a bunch of physical stats while pretty much massively draining off your mental stats, I guess. It would be a great sword to just wield throughout the game and not even worry about going to kill the gargoyle itself for its reward. The problem is that the Gargoyle Killer, you can only connect their 3 attacks before it breaks, and it's gone forever. The point of the Gargoyle Killer, at least in our case, is not going to be for killing, but just for the mere additional stats, because 150 vitality is a lot of vitality. No, the primary thing we are going to be using in our fight against the gargoyle here are scrolls. Yeah, I did probably about 2 hours of off-screen grinding, and it managed to get me 1 earth scroll and 1 air scroll, which is completely useless, and 2 additional fire scrolls, which we already had 1 of, so we now have a whopping 4 scrolls, which may not seem like that much, but it is going to be a massive boon in our fight. So without further ado, that is the basic setup. As of right now, our other characters massively underleveled for the most part, but I think we should be able to get by as long as Koudelka lives and Edward lives here. So, to trigger the fight, all we want to do is walk towards the crack in the wall here where we saw the plant before. And that allows us to initiate our fight. So, the gargoyle itself has 3 primary means of attack. It does 2 physical attacks, and it has 1 wind-based spell, which can cause all 4 status ailments at the same time, so that can be a bit cumbersome. But my main strategy here is to just keep Edward at the front as our meat shield, as per usual. And it's not going to make much sense, he is going to cast some Fortify spells on Koudelka, because we actually want her to have as many turns as possible, which is going to be kind of hard because this sword gives a lot in the way of agility. So off screen I did boost all 3 characters' Fortify agility up to level 3, so just to help with this particular fight. Yeah, there we see possibly the main boon from pumping up or giving Edward that sword. I think normally that attack would probably do about 2,000 damage. And that is not a good time. For Koudelka, well, we are going to just want to boost up her int. I mean, her int is at a reasonable level right now, but the amount of damage that she can do from the scrolls is kind of relative to her overall intelligence, so you want to make sure that you don't end up wasting those scrolls. You want to try to be as tip-top as you possibly can be. And also, it might help to boost up Edward's pie in this situation. Not so much for the added magic defense, but more so that he can just have an additional MP pool, so that he can just cast, Fortify spells on Koudelka more. And I will say this is probably one of the few times when I find the fact that you can just check your stats while already in an active battle, because that does help me to measure. I'd say I'd probably want to have her start using her scrolls at about 100 total intelligence. Oh yeah, here comes you can tell he's about to do his wind spell when he starts spinning like an idiot. And you might be thinking, man, 4,500, that's going to be a problem, right? No, because as I mentioned, I think Edward actually has about 20k health right now, or maybe even 30k. He might be on par with the Gargoyle himself, so we're not really going to need to worry too much about his health pool for the most part. I mean, even when he gets poisoned, it's only going to be 20 extra damage, and I think, as far as I can tell, the Gargoyle seems to cycle through all of his attacks. Like, he's never going to do the wind spell multiple times in a row, which is kind of helpful. I'd say the one real annoyance with this fight overall is just you kind of want to make sure never to attack with Edward, because if his sword does break, you're kind of fucked. And you don't want to be fucked in this fight. You definitely don't want to be fucked. So let's check her stats. 88, she's getting there. The good thing is I also bumped up James's Fortify Intelligence spell, so he is doing 9, or +9 int every turn rather than +3. I mean, granted, it is a lot more expensive. It's just, it does kind of expedite this fight. Which is probably for the best, because this, I think, is probably going to be the longest boss fight you're ever going to have in the game, and I think that's even if you go in fully prepared. Like, I really cannot imagine how tedious this fight would be, I guess, if you try to do it legitimately. I mean, it's not to say that it's hard at all to level up. I mean, getting level 50 probably isn't going to be that super hard. It's probably not any harder than me, grinding away at spell levels, but yeah, I kind of feel like the reward this gives is better used earlier on. Though, I guess that's more up to interpretation. We're kind of running into an issue here, because Edward is almost out of MP, which means we are going to have to cycle through waiting periods over and over and over with him. So let's see. She is at 100 right now, so let's go ahead and let's use the Earth Scroll. See how much damage that does. Short 9,000, but 8,700 still pretty good. Still pretty good. Still, we can keep on bumping up her int. I mean, James really isn't going to be doing much else with his MP at the moment. And hopefully you have been making sure to bump up Koudelka and James's piety, because the boss will, or the Gargoyle will sometimes cast his spell on your other two characters. And oh great, she is silenced. Cannot have that. Yeah, it's kind of a bad scene if he does manage to silence, paralyze, poison, just do absolutely every status ailment at the same time. So, just as a point of comparison between the scroll and just her normal spell, because I think the scroll does the graphic effect of a level 3 spell, but it just seems to have like a massive amount of additional int on it. I'm not really sure the exact math on it. Let's see, let's give her a turn. So 2,000. So the scroll did about 4 times the amount. And technically, yeah, you could probably just sit here and spam away at her just normal spells. But yeah, that takes a really, really, really long time. I'm really hoping he doesn't decide to cast a spell onto Koudelka. Hooray, we were lucky. So we go ahead and use another scroll. Use the fire scroll. If at all possible, I want to make sure and not use all my scrolls, just because maybe leaving one for the final boss, or at least one other boss, would be pretty nice. I don't really want to grind for any more scrolls. They're useful, but they're not that useful. So I don't know. I find the primary use for them is just for this one boss. This is like the one real ultimate situation in the game where you do probably want to have these goddamn scrolls. Do hope that James can cast something soon. There we go. I'll go ahead and heal up Koudelka. Please do not kill me. Yeah, other than that, though, there's really not much in the way of additional strategy. Just, the normal strategy you've had throughout the game, which is Edward your meat shield and Koudelka is your glass cannon. It's just, you have to go to kind of absurd ends to make Edward the meat shield in this situation. Oh no, he's actually got past the 9,999 mark. We're worried, I guess. I mean, technically I am worried. God kind of suck at this point. I think we've only gotten him down to... I think we're over half of his health, though. Let's see, we've cast 3 spells at about 6,000 apiece, and we've done... Actually, no. I could probably cast another scroll, and he should be dead. That is my thinking inflection. Hooray! And the hardest boss in the game is dead. Not through sheer luck or effort, but through idling and saving and grinding out a very pathetic enemy, known as Mars. And for our big reward, a mind idol. Ooh, that's kind of awful. Yeah, you get 0 experience for that fight, which is very rewarding. The idol is a somewhat unique item, and what it does is it gives you +3 in, I think, the specific stat that it mentions, mind. Meh. Really kind of a shit stat, honestly, so here you go, Koudelka. But yeah, I guess the good part of that is we still have some scrolls, we still have our stat stick here, which is very useful. I'm going to go ahead and just pop back on some random nonsense on him. It's back to his pathetic health. And you might be wondering, man, that idol was not really that great of reward. And that's because there is an additional reward that you have to go searching for. And I didn't really show it during the initial part where I was going through the courtyard outside. Just not really, obviously, necessary to go see at the moment. But for now, we are going to go get that reward real quick. Now, honestly, I have kind of a mixed opinion about overpowered, like, super enemies or super bosses in games. You know, you have your ruby weapon or emerald weapons, or if you played Nippon Ichi games, you'll have, like, Predator X and all that type of fucking nonsense. And those, especially like Nippon Ichi games, can be just grating. I will say, this isn't a boss where you have to kind of exploit things to get by. It just helps. So at least it's better in that regard. So, but yeah, if we go like downwards in the screen past the fountain here, we can get to actually the front gate of the monastery itself, though we cannot open it. Instead, what we want is going to be off to the side here. And if I take a quick look at the map, it doesn't really show it. Not yet, anyway. Yeah, there's a little section off here where you see a very imposing male statue as opposed to all the female statues. And if we examine it beforehand, it would tell us that some magic power is holding the sword in place, the holy sword Sakonoff. But now that we have taken out the gargoyle and lifted all the malevolent, that's a good word, malevolent spirits that were inside the chapel there, we can now gain probably the most powerful melee sword or melee weapon in the game. And if we take a quick look at it, I think first and foremost you should realize that Sakonoff is not just a weird random name. In fact, it is the name of the developer. So this is our own little fun melee weapon, or fun little Easter egg. You'll see that it gives pretty nice boon to strength and dexterity and agility. No real boost to vitality, but that is completely fine. The real major boon to this weapon is the fact that as opposed to the Gargoyle killer, this weapon has, I think, like 255 durability. Like, you can swing it 255 times before it'll break. And unless you're just massively grinding with the sword, you're probably, like, I think most original thoughts are that the sword was unbreakable, but it does have, like, a maximum durability. But yeah, this is your final major reward. I don't know, I get the feeling that the shape of this and the theme behind it is maybe a reference to something, but I'm not entirely sure, just because, well, this was the developer's first game, and I mean, it might be a reference to like a Square Enix game, since the guy that made the company was also a Square Enix. I'm not really sure. But that is the hardest boss defeated and the best weapon unlocked. And hopefully you enjoyed this rather extended bonus video, and I will see you next time.